And that's appropriate, you know, and to be told that Shakespeare, a knowledge of Shakespeare. In fact, there was a man who just published a book called Cultural Literacy, E.D. Hirsch, and in that he had 4,000 things everybody's supposed to know. And the biggest chunk of the list that he produced about what everyone in the world is supposed to know to be considered culturally literate is information on ancient European history, which is the Greco-Roman world. Okay. So why do they do that? Because they know that cultural unity is equal to political unity and economic power.
And so the person who's watching, who might be working at McDonald's or some college, it is important that their children see their images and read about themselves because of what?
It is important because without self-knowledge, you have no orientation. In other words, it's like a person walking around with amnesia, with no memory. You don't really have a background to use to explain the experiences that you're having. So when any group of people disconnects itself from its own historical tradition, it is at the mercy of anyone else who comes along and tries to help them look at things on a day-by-day basis.
Quickly.
Yes.
What is wrong with the people reading, always reading, the history of another people?
Well, first, I think you should read everyone's history. But I think if we always read the history of someone else, we will become psychologically unbalanced. We will become people who do not belong anywhere, because it's clear that you can't belong to someone else's history.
You mentioned the thing about the sheepdog some time ago.
You want to hear the story of the sheepdog?
Quickly.
Okay.
You have a plane to catch, right?
I do have a plane to catch. So this has to be a short sheepdog story. Okay. Basically, it's a true story about how sheepdog are trained, and that you train a sheepdog, a dog that you can whistle and tell him to go herd sheep, and the owner can sit down on the hill, his master can sit on the hill, and this dog will run all over in the hot sun and herd sheep for him wherever he wants him to go by signal. And the way he trains the dog to do that is to put that dog, as it is born, into a pen with sheep. And this dog actually nurses and eats, it sucks on a sheep mother. And it grows up thinking it's a sheep. In other words, it has the body, intelligence, endurance, strength of a dog, but it has the mind of a sheep, so that it is then pliable, amenable. It can be trained to do things that are very undog-like, and do things even not in its own interest, do things that really are not beneficial to his sibling. For example, he could see a dog that was born at the same time that he was from the same mother, but if he never saw that dog until he was an adult, he would treat his own brother as if he's the enemy.
So the black child, the black student, who is always reading someone else's history exclusively,
is like a sheepdog? Yes.
Okay.
Is that what you were
let's get a quick one.
You want one or two more slides?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can find it. Okay, here's a good one. I have collected together some of the images that we've been looking at, mixed them with images of African Americans and African people to emphasize the theme that you've heard before from Dr. Joseph Ben Jochanan, which says they all look alike. And what he's, of course, referring to is that no matter where African people have been dispersed throughout the world, that they still hold not only the physical image of Africa, but they also hold the cultural orientation of African people. And that may be a good slide to stop on.
Oh, really?
If you've got more time. I mean, as far
with
as
all that, with all that you have said, what is the most important thing that the black parent, the black child, the black teacher can do?
Okay. Speaking as an educator and as a psychologist now, in trying to identify the most urgent priority that I can find that will help us to do what we have to do. And that is, I think that there is...
What we have to do, the goal here is what?
The goal is unity and resurrection.
And liberation.
And liberation. Well, liberation for resurrection. As a people, not just as individuals. I think it's important for our people to be strong again. In order for that to happen, it means that there has to be a systematic activity, I guess I call it study, to restore memory. In other words, parents and children and teachers alike have to be re-educated. They have to have new information and new insights that give them a basis for looking in a different way at the experience that we happen to be engaged in. So that means a study of history. That means a study of culture. That means creating the institutions that will let us practice that history and practice that culture.
Is the answer money, necessarily?
I don't think the answer is, money would be great, but I don't think the answer is money. It's interesting to me that as I go around the country and look in African-American bookstores, that it's the grassroots people that seem to be buying the books. That many of the African-Americans who have gotten bachelor's, master's, and doctor's degrees are not readers. They're not using their minds to refresh their perspective, and many bookstore owners will tell you that.
So what does this tell you about the talented 10th?
It tells you that many of the talented 10th have been, according to Carter G. Woodson, miseducated.
Well, you haven't, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's our program. Thank you.